Hello and welcome. Okay, let's just jump right in because let's be honest, we are all drowning in AI hype. Every single day, there's a new tool, a new breakthrough that's going to change everything. But, behind all that noise, there's a very different, much more careful conversation happening. Today, we're going to cut through the hype and look at how mature organizations are actually building AI systems that are valuable, durable, and truly built to last.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the huge gap between the public hype and the private reality. Then we'll walk down that all too common path to failure to really understand why so many of these projects just fizzle out. After that, we'll get to the good stuff, the huge mindset shift that turns everything around, the practical frameworks for getting it done right, and we'll wrap it all up with the one simple question that really separates a flash in the pan from lasting value.
All right, so let's start with this core tension. Because right now, there are really two completely different conversations about AI happening. You've got the one that we all see in the headlines, and then there's the one happening behind closed doors, inside companies that have learned a thing or two from past tech waves.
And this is where it starts for all of us, right? It's just impossible to ignore. There's this constant drumbeat of breakthroughs that creates this incredible pressure to just do something, adopt the latest tool before you get left behind. It feels like a race, and nobody wants to come in last. But here's the thing, this caution, it isn't about fear. It's not about resisting change at all. It's a smart, deliberate strategy that comes from experience. See, these leaders, they've seen this movie before with other tech hype cycles. They know that rushing into things without thinking about the guardrails creates massive, massive headaches down the road. They know speed without structure is basically a recipe for disaster. And that caution is totally justified because there is a very common path paved with the best of intentions that almost always ends in failure. And understanding this path is really the first step to making sure you don't go down it. Okay, so these are the three big tripwires. First step, blurred responsibility. When the AI messes up, who's on the hook? If nobody knows, it just becomes a game of hot potato and nothing gets fixed. Second, when speed is the only thing that matters, you end up launching a rocket without checking for leaks. It looks great on takeoff, but it's going to blow up. And third, automating complex decisions way too soon. I mean, imagine an AI automatically denies a refund to one of your biggest clients over some tiny technicality. Poof, you've just torched a critical relationship because the AI has zero human context. And this is how those big ideas fail in the real world, day to day. The experts, the people who actually know how things work, they're always too busy. Nobody can even agree on what success would look like for the project. It loses steam because key people keep getting pulled away from more urgent things. And that senior exec who was so excited at the kickoff, yeah, their attention is wandered and the project just withers on the vine. Sound familiar? And a totally predictable result of all this is something called shadow AI. It's what happens when good teams, trying to do good work, just start using tools on their own without any formal approval or standards. It's just like shadow IT was in the early days of the cloud, but honestly, it's moving way, way faster. And it leads to this mess of fragmented systems, duplicated work, and this huge mountain of hidden risk that eventually someone is going to have to clean up. Okay, so enough of the doom and gloom. That's the cautionary tale. Now let's flip the script and talk about how to get this right. And this brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer, the huge mindset shift that mature organizations are making to build AI that actually works. This right here is the whole game. The best teams, they don't treat AI like some shiny new gadget. They treat it like the plumbing, the foundation of the business. It's not an experiment, it's a utility. And that simple shift in thinking, it changes absolutely everything. And this is just a brilliant way to think about it. Think about the power in your house. You don't see it. You don't even think about it. You just expect it to work every single time. It's invisible, it's completely reliable, and for safety, it's very tightly controlled. You only notice it when it breaks. That is the goal for AI that truly helps. So let's go back to those failure points. But this time, let's look at the solutions. What's so great here is that the works when column is a perfect antidote. For every single failure point, this infrastructure mindset has a direct fix. Blurred responsibility? Nope. We have clear ownership. Somebody's name is on it, period. Speed at all costs? No way. The smartest systems are designed to know when to raise a hand and say, hey, I need a human to look at this. In automating everything? Not a chance. For the really critical calls, a human always has the final say. So how do you actually make this infrastructure mindset real? Well, it starts by totally rethinking governance, not as some bureaucratic roadblock, but as the essential system that makes everything possible. This is such a powerful way to reframe it. We tend to think of governance as this dusty rule book you pull out at the end of a project, which pretty much guarantees it's going to be a pain. But thinking of it as an operating system, that changes everything. It's a coordination tool you build in from day one to stop confusion and duplicated effort before they even start. At a bare minimum, this operating system has to answer 4 huge questions right at the very beginning. 1, who owns the use case? 2, who owns the data? 3, who is responsible for the model once it's actually live? And 4, who gives the final sign-off to go from an experiment to production? See, when these questions are ignored, you get that shadow AI problem. But when they're answered early, approvals actually get faster because the rules of the road are crystal clear for everybody.
Because a huge part of that OS is just observability. It's simple. You can't govern what you can't see. A model's performance can degrade over time. The data it's using can drift. Bias can creep in. So governance that's hooked into real-time visibility of how the system is actually performing can catch these problems before they cause any real damage. In that way, observability becomes one of your most important governance tools.
Okay, so we've got the mindset and we've got the governance. Now let's get into the how. We need a practical, systematic way to bake accountability into our systems from the very first day. And this brings us to a concept called reviewability. This isn't just about being able to see the code. It's a much bigger idea. It's about seeing automated decision-making as a whole process, with people and technology working together from start to finish. The goal is really simple. Keep the right records at every single step so that you can go back and have a meaningful review of how and why a decision was made. This framework breaks the whole thing down into 4 logical stages. Commissioning is the why, defining the purpose and the rules. Development is the how, building the thing. Operation is the what, using the system in the real world. And investigation is the proof, auditing the system to make sure it's doing what you thought it would. It turns a really complex problem into a pretty manageable checklist. And this shows you just one of those stages. Let's zoom in on development. It's not just one step, it is a whole life cycle. A truly reviewable system demands that you keep clear records at every single one of these sub-steps. It's that level of detail that creates real, useful accountability, not just transparency theater. So this entire journey, from avoiding failure to building durable, accountable systems, it really all comes down to one fundamental shift. A shift in the very first question that leaders and their teams ask before a single line of code ever gets written. This is where so many projects begin. It's a question driven by technology. A team gets excited about a new tool, a new model, and their first instinct is to go look for a problem that fits their shiny new solution. Hey, what can we do with this thing? It's a question that's full of excitement, but it's also where that path to failure usually begins. But the truly mature strategic leader asks a different question. They ask, what should we do? And that one word, it changes everything. It reframes the entire conversation away from what is technologically possible to what is strategically wise, what is responsible, and what is actually valuable to the business. Real maturity in the age of AI isn't measured by how complex your models are. It's measured by the quality of your questions. So the real question for you is this: are you asking what you can do, or are you asking what you should do?